Okay, everybody, this is our second video of the day in which we are going to annotate the charge of the Light Brigade. I'm going to try and do it in one video very quickly, but if I don't, there'll be a second video and we'll do that on Friday as well. Charge of the Light Brigade needs 4 pens, as I said before, and I've been doing them, thanks to Jamie, with a post-it every time I do it so I can remember what I'm supposed to be annotating. And so thanks to Jamie for suggesting using a post-it which you move around between the poems so that you just use the same method every single time. We've looked at this opening, but we cannot just skip this. Okay? We are following the Foss way, and we need to consider form first and the opening. So let's talk about this opening. The charge of the Light Brigade. It sounds like a factual account. It's giving me the feeling that I'm going to get a factual account of what really happened during this war. And it's written by the Poet Laureate. And therefore there is trust, that the Queen has trusted this Poet Laureate, so I should too. What else do we get calling it the charge? Now, a charge is actually a terminology word. So that's a terminology, and it's war terminology, okay? And a charge means that you are attacking, okay? And it doesn't mean you're going to kill everybody, but in war, that's obviously assumed. So, is this true about the charge of the Light Brigade? We know they were sent to recce and try and stop the Russians from taking these gun posts, but they were not meant to charge them down, attack them, steal the guns, and come home. They were just meant to go and stop the Russians taking the guns. So already this factual account is a little bit untrue. It's not really true that they're meant to be attacking. So by saying that they're attacking, the tone of the poem is calling this into question. Is this going to be truly a factual account? We should be able to trust the Poet Laureate to do this. So let's see how this deviates as we go through this factual account. Another thing we need to remember is that as the Poet Laureate wrote this, it could be seen as a bit of propaganda for the government, okay? Because it's a post given by the Queen and continued by the government, and therefore there could be a problem if he starts calling into question things that the government are sanctioning, like the war. All right? So these two ideas are in opposition to each other. It cannot both be a factual account taking into account both sides and propaganda for the government, which only takes into account the side the government wants you to hear. So this is a jarring, unsettling idea then, that it could mean more than one thing. And we'll see how it goes through with the tone. As we know, structurally, there's a lot of anaphora. Okay, so we'll mark that from our lesson before. And you can see we're just going to focus now at the beginning. And when we focus at the beginning, we'll focus at the first couple of lines. The opening then is anaphora, and then it uses this dactylic dimeter, okay? And by using this dactylic dimeter, which I will put in for us, it is starting the poem out by making us think of the hoofbeats of horses. dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da da dun da da. Now, what did I say about the anaphora last time? Did I say it slows us down or that it speeds us up? Now, I said it speeds us up. Okay? So the anaphora speeds up the reader. It emphasizes that the soldiers are really attacking. It is really a charge, and they are really on horses. And, ooh, pardon me. I'm going to remember to write anaphora down. All right. We've got a great soap aims right in the beginning, just to get us going. So we've checked out this in the beginning, the opening. So we're at form, which we did yesterday a little bit of, and I'm going to weave that in. What could we say about the form? We have got the dactylic diameter, the horse's hoofbeat sound. Okay, so we're bringing in the form straight away. We then mix that with the structure of the anaphora so that we say that the reader is speeding up. You can see the horses running. It is very sensory in its effect. Okay? And then we get this great illusion, the Valley of Death. Now, if you've been to church, you know that the Valley of Death references, I'm going to have a lot of arrows here now, it references Psalm I got completely distracted by a maths problem, in which case I had to work out 3/4 of an A, and it was impossible. Right, so the Valley of Death references Psalm 23, and it's one of David's, as in David and Goliath, David's laments. Okay, and David here is saying at the end, when he says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, okay, and that after we say the valley of death, he says, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Okay, so the long and short of it is that Tennyson plays on the fact that most people have memorized that psalm. It's incredibly well known, and they will know this. They will know that when you talk about going into the valley of death, you talk about God being with you, and therefore you are not afraid of doing so. So not only is this literally a valley of death, but we also have the illusion of referencing God being with them. So this is a Christian reference to the Bible. So if you bring up in your next paragraph, after you've talked about the form of the first verse and how it brings up the hoofbeats of the horses, if you're then mentioning that immediately Tennyson brings up the Valley of Death, and in this he breaks the diameter, he breaks the rhythm or the form. So you are talking, I can spell, he breaks the rhythm. So you are now bringing in the form, and you are using that to do your discussion of one of the soap aims for the opening. Right, okay. Is God then protecting these people? That's what they believe. Okay, so is God on the side of these soldiers? You're noticing through every poem that you've read so far to do with war that God is brought into it, and that's not an accident. So let's keep going then. He starts with the metonymy here. We're going to color that as a soap aims color. which is blue, according to my coloring, because we can then use the word metonymy, all right, and show that he is repeating, which is a structural point, but he is repeating this metonymy, and we can talk about why he is doing that. And as we went in the last lesson and discovered why he was doing that, he's bringing out the strength of the number. The idea of a number being strong, it might be an interesting one, but and this number is a very strong idea. It is a very physical representation of these soldiers. And does this then affect the tone? Well, is it factual? Yes. It's talking very factually about the number of the people being involved. It is very, very factual. It talks about the attack. So we could say, oh yes, it's very much bringing out the tone that this is a factual account using this metonymy. But it's also an emotional grab for the reader, because they can imagine 600 where they can't imagine it when they don't know the number. They just see the regiment, the Light Brigade, and they can't imagine how many are in the Light Brigade or who they are. So this is a little bit moving away from it being purely factual now. And I'll write that down so I don't forget to talk about it. And I'll color it orange. Because we always want to be considering, how am I going to talk about this poem? What am I going to say? It's very nice that we know about it, but how are we going to use this information? Okay. And we've got some quotations here, and it's very interesting. Half a league, I will read it. Half a league, half a league, half a league, onward all in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward, the Light Brigade, charge for the guns, he said, into the valley of death rode the 600. Do you see that repetition? There is an awful lot of repetition. But why? That's a structural idea. Why is the need for the anaphora? Well, we know why that is, because it speeds us up. So why the repetition so much later of the valley of death and the road the 600? Are we getting that idea that he's really trying to hammer the number in and hammer the fact that they're all going to die in? I'm thinking yes. So it is a very effective at getting the facts across so that he can then concentrate on the emotions of the scene. Okay? So let's move into the second stanza. Forward, the Light Brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. I want you to take a few seconds now to color in all of the anaphora, as I'm going to. Okay? All of the repetition again of the valley of death and the idea of dying. Okay? And I'd like you to color in this line or this word orange, which is an unusual one because it's tone. All right? So this is where the structure breaks down. Do you see how much faster I read? It sounded like we were moving forward, forward. And that's why we use this word. Forward, the Light Brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. As soon as we get to this line, the dactylic diameter breaks down. Right on the word blundered. But why? Well, obviously this is the word that Tennyson was affected by. from the news report. And he's put this in. And he's put this in for a particular reason. He's emphasizing that there has been a mistake. These men died because of the mistake. He's putting the breakdown, the last word before blundered here, because we've got some rhymes here. So we could say, oh, well, he's rhymed the end here, but he hasn't rhymed here. And he's emphasizing that, plus the breakdown of the dactylic diameter, to show that people did know. And he can't be hidden, can it? It emphasizes this new to focus attention on the reality of the mistake. He cannot, he cannot say straight out, by the way, Lord Cardigan completely messed it up. Lord Lucan didn't follow the instructions, or he should have at least questioned whether that made any sense. So he cannot do this straight out. As the poet laureate, he has to focus on protecting the British interests. So therefore he has to do so with subtlety. Okay, I can spell. And with the subtlety, he's using the word blundered from the newspaper report. He's using the word new and blundered as the dactylic diameter breaks down, and really, really focusing on the fact that when people make mistakes, which is an accident, he doesn't say they did it to be hideous. When they make mistakes, then we are going to have to live with that or die. So well, let's see how the rhyme scheme works out. It's gone, it's done, and we're just going to have to live with the consequences of this man being a bit inept that day. Let's look at the rhymes, particularly here. We've got the brigade and the dismayed, the reply and the why and the die. So let's look at the words which don't then rhyme. The 600, blundered, and new. None of them rhyme. It's a very, very difficult word to rhyme, isn't it? Hundred, drid, okay? Brigade would be much easier to rhyme. We've seen dismayed and brigade rhyme up here. So let's have a little look at why he might have left these words out of the rhyme scheme. It's because he's focusing attention on the words that don't rhyme. So already we've got ideas here about the fact that they knew and they blundered, okay? That he's done that by not rhyming them and breaking down the dactylic diameter, okay? This is a very, very famous bit of anaphora. There's not to make reply, there's not to reason why, there's but to do and die. It's often misquoted. It's often misquoted as being do or die, but actually it's and, because and we are getting our attention focused that we have to live with the consequences of the blunder, and they're going to die. They've done it and they're going to die. It's pretty clear. And then they bring up this allusion again. They're going to die. Okay, I don't see how many times he can say that without saying, by the way, they are going to die straight out. Okay? Now, he's obviously tried really hard to focus our attention on the do and the die, making that alliteration. Okay, it's not an or, it's definitely an and. And by using the alliteration, he focuses on that terrible outcome, that terrible consequence. Right, next. I'm just going to move us down. Bit of anaphora here to start off with them. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode and well, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600. Where are the unrhymed words? That's the focus. We've got the thems that all rhyme. The shell, well, and hell rhyme. We've got thundered and death and 100. Now you can start seeing the drid. And it's a really interesting rhythm. It's almost a rhyme. We're not going to call it a para-rhyme because it's not a para-rhyme. But here clearly he's rhymed blundered with 100 and he's rhymed thundered with 100, okay? Why? It's not a proper rhyme. It sounds a bit right, but it's not a proper rhyme. It is, in fact, really jarring, isn't it? So this really jarring experience with the not quite rhyme really focuses our attention on the active words. So I'm going to use our soap aims one because these are verbs. Thundered, volleyed. I'll add stormed in, okay? And these are active words that we're really seeing somebody is going to be hurt here because this is sounding a lot more dangerous here. So combining this anaphora here with these active verbs gives the impression with the tone, are we getting a factual account here or are we getting a rather sensory account here? Well, it's moving away from the factual account. We're getting this real sensory experience. Also, this is really interesting. Cannon to right of them sounds wrong. It's missing the. And it's cannon to left of them. It's missing the, okay? By missing out the, it makes the rhythm work, but he does it for a different reason. He makes it feel that there's just a lot. If I said cannons to the right of them, you might think there were one or two. If I say cannons to right, it sounds like there are endless cannons, okay? So it shows that they are fully encompassed about by cannons, okay? It misses out this definite article. I better call it that in case you forget what it is. Now we can call that a soap aims because we're being generous with our idea of soap aims. We'll throw that in. So you've done the opening, just here, and you questioned the title and the opening. As we progress, you can see this anaphora speeding us up. This dactylic diameter, the hoofbeats of the horses. Forward the light brigade, was there a man dismayed? Then we go cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon in front of them. Okay, this is the horses. This is speeding up now. And the way that Tennyson actually read it, you can still listen to it online, but I couldn't get you to link to it, and I just didn't have the time. He reads it where he starts very slowly and speeds up and speeds up and speeds up as he makes the anaphora work to speed us up. All right? There are a lot of other words we could talk about, but we need to judiciously choose our quotations. All right? And at the end, they ride into the mouth of hell, so they've ridden into the valley. Okay? You would expect there to be a gorgeous rhyming couplet at the end of something, but none of these stanzas have rhyming couplets at the end. Therefore, it's clearly not the end, and it's drawing attention the lack of rhyming couplet at the end of each stanza is drawing attention. Oops, goodness, my spelling is bad today. To the lack of ending. Because we know still about this poem. It's still a very well remembered poem. It's time now to turn page and go to our second set of 3 stanzas. And because we're already at 25 minutes, I'm going to turn this into 2 videos instead of 1. This one's going to be a lot shorter because we've almost covered everything we need anyway. And I'm going to start with the idea of this being a particular form of a ballad. So click on to the next video now.